I never thought I'd be the kind of person who watches someone through a window. But there I was, coffee growing cold in my hands, staring at the man fixing the fence line that ran along the eastern edge of our property. My parents had hired him 3 days ago, and I'd already memorized the way he moved. His name was Luca, and he'd fixed the fence closest to my bedroom window first. I'm Reed, 24, back home after college because my father had a stroke and someone needed to help keep the family farm running while he recovered. I'd been living in Seattle, working at a tech startup, dating occasionally, but never seriously. I'd had a girlfriend sophomore year, a few awkward hookups junior year, and then mostly just focused on my career. I told myself I was too busy for relationships. Looking back now, I realize I was too busy avoiding something I didn't want to name. Luca showed up on a Tuesday morning in early June. I was in the kitchen when my mother walked him through the house to show him the property from the back porch. He was maybe 27 or 28, with sun-darkened skin and dark hair that curled slightly at his collar. He wore work boots that had seen better days and a faded blue t-shirt that fit him in a way that made me look away quickly, then look back when I thought no one would notice. My mother explained what needed doing. The fence line ran for nearly a quarter mile around our property, and sections of it had rotted through after years of neglect. My father had always meant to fix it himself, but then came the stroke, and suddenly everything we'd been putting off became urgent. Luca listened carefully, asked a few questions in a voice that was quieter than I expected, and then nodded. He'd start right away, he said. He quoted a fair price. My mother hired him on the spot. I went back to my room after they finished talking, back to the spreadsheets I'd been working on for the farm accounts. My window overlooked the eastern fence line, the section that bordered the old pasture we hadn't used in years. I heard the sound of his truck starting up, then driving around to park near that section of fence. I told myself I was just taking a break when I looked outside. I told myself I was just checking to make sure he'd found the right area. He worked methodically, pulling out the rotten posts one by one, digging new holes with a post-hole digger. I watched him work for maybe 5 minutes before I realized what I was doing and forced myself back to the computer, but my eyes kept drifting to the window. I noticed the way he wiped sweat from his forehead with the back of his hand. I noticed the way he'd step back occasionally to check if the posts were level. I noticed everything, and that noticing felt dangerous in a way I couldn't articulate. By lunch, he'd replaced 4 posts. My mother brought him lemonade and a sandwich, and I watched from my window as they talked. He smiled at something she said, and I felt something strange in my chest, something that felt almost like jealousy, which made no sense at all. I didn't even know him. I went downstairs and made myself busy in the barn, checking on things that didn't need checking. The second day, Wednesday, I woke up earlier than usual. I told myself it was because I had work to do, but I made my coffee and went straight to my room, to the window. He arrived at 7:30, parking in the same spot. Today he wore a gray t-shirt and the same work boots. I watched him unload his tools, watched him walk the fence line to see where he'd left off. Then he did something that made my breath catch. He looked up at my window. Just for a second. Then he went back to work. Had he seen me watching yesterday? The thought made my face hot. I stepped back from the window, but I didn't leave the room. I sat at my desk, angled so I could see outside without being obvious about it. I tried to work, but I kept losing my place in the spreadsheets. My eyes kept finding him. The way he moved was economical, efficient, like someone who'd been doing physical work his whole life. There was something almost meditative about it. Around 10, I decided to bring him water. It was already getting hot, and my mother was in town at the grocery store. Someone should check on him, I reasoned. It was the neighborly thing to do. I filled a bottle with cold water and ice, and I walked out to the fence line trying to look casual, trying to act like this was normal, like I did this sort of thing all the time. He saw me coming and straightened up, pulling off his work gloves. Up close, he was even more striking. He had these dark eyes that seemed to notice everything, and when he smiled at me, I felt that strange sensation in my chest again, stronger this time. "Thank you," he said, taking the water bottle. His fingers brushed mine for just a second, and I felt that touch everywhere. "You're the son, right? Reed?" "Yeah," I said. My voice came out rougher than I intended. I cleared my throat. "Just wanted to make sure you had what you needed." "I'm good," he said. "Your mom's been taking good care of me." He drank deeply from the bottle, and I watched his throat work as he swallowed. I realized I was staring and looked away quickly, out at the fence line. "You started with this section," I said, "just to say something." "Yeah," he said. "I figured I'd do the part closest to the house first. That way you all can see the progress. Plus, I noticed this was the worst section. Some of these posts were barely standing." "Makes sense," I said. There was a pause. "I should have left, but I didn't. So you've been doing this kind of work for a while." "Most of my life," he said. "My dad was a contractor. I grew up on job sites." He smiled again, and there was something warm in it. Something that made me want to keep talking to him, to find reasons to stay. We talked for maybe 10 minutes. I learned he'd moved to the area 6 months ago from California, that he was renting a small house in town, that he liked the slower pace here. I told him about Seattle, about the tech job I'd left behind, about coming home to help. He listened like he was actually interested, not just being polite. When I finally made myself walk back to the house, I could feel him watching me go. That night, I lay in bed thinking about the way he'd looked at me, or maybe the way I'd imagined he'd looked at me. I couldn't tell the difference anymore. I thought about his hands, strong and calloused from work. I thought about his smile. And then I thought about what it meant that I was thinking about these things, and I felt a kind of vertigo, like standing at the edge of something high. I'd had these thoughts before, scattered throughout my life. A friend in high school who made me feel nervous and excited in equal measure. A guy in my dorm who I'd found myself watching the way I now watched Luca. But I'd always pushed those thoughts away, filed them under some category I refused to examine. Now, alone in the dark, I let myself think about it, about him, about what I might be feeling. Thursday morning, I didn't go to my window. I stayed in the kitchen, helping my mother with breakfast, then went to check on my father. He was doing better, regaining some mobility in his left side, but he tired easily. I sat with him for a while, reading him the news from my phone, and I was grateful for the distraction. But even as I read, I was aware of the sounds from outside, the rhythmic thunk of the post driver, the low rumble of Luca's truck engine. Around noon, my mother asked me to bring lunch out to him. She'd made extra sandwiches, she said, and it was too hot for him to drive into town. I wanted to say no. I wanted to say I was busy. Instead, I said sure, and I took the paper bag she handed me and walked out to the fence line. He was working on a section about 50 yards from my window now, making steady progress. When he saw me coming, he set down his tools and met me halfway. I handed him the bag, and he thanked me. We stood there in the hot sun, and I felt sweat trickling down my back. "Your mom's going to spoil me," he said, opening the bag. He pulled out a sandwich and took a bite. "This is really good. Tell her thank you." "I will," I said. Another pause. "I should have left." "I didn't. How's it going?" "Good," he said. "I should have this whole section done by tomorrow afternoon. Then I'll move to the north side." He looked at me while he said it, and I felt like he was saying something else. Something underneath the words. Or maybe I was imagining it. Maybe I was projecting what I wanted to hear. "That's great," I said. "We need to get it done before the county inspection next month." "We will," he said. He took another bite of his sandwich, chewing slowly. Then he said, "You can come watch if you want. I don't mind." The words hung in the air between us. My face went hot. So he had seen me. He knew I'd been watching. I wasn't, I started to say, but he shook his head. It's okay, he said quietly. His eyes met mine, and there was something in them that made my heart race. I get it. I didn't know what to say. I felt exposed, vulnerable, like he could see right through me to all the things I'd been trying not to think about. But he wasn't mocking me. There was no judgment in his expression, just understanding. I should get back, I said finally, and he nodded. Thanks for lunch, he said. And read. I looked back at him. I fixed your section first for a reason. I walked back to the house, feeling like the ground had shifted beneath my feet. What did that mean? I fixed your section first for a reason. I replayed the words over and over, trying to parse them, trying to understand. He'd noticed me watching. He'd chosen to work where I could see him. That meant something, didn't it? Or was I reading too much into it? Was I so desperate for this to mean something that I was inventing significance where none existed? I spent the afternoon in a kind of daze, going through the motions of work without really focusing. My mother asked if I was feeling okay. I said I was fine, just tired. That night, I stood at my window for a long time after Luca had left, looking at the new fence posts standing straight and solid where the old rotted ones had been. He'd done good work, clean, professional, built to last. Friday, he finished the eastern section. I watched from my window in the morning, then forced myself to go into town on an errand I didn't really need to run. When I got back in the afternoon, his truck was gone. The fence was complete, all new posts and rails stretching in a clean line across the property. It looked good. Better than good. And I felt a strange sense of loss, knowing he wouldn't be working in that spot anymore. But Monday morning, his truck was parked by the north fence line, visible from the kitchen window. He'd be working there all week, my mother said. I felt a complicated mix of relief and anxiety. I'd see him again. I'd have to figure out what to say, how to act, whether to acknowledge what had passed between us on Thursday or pretend it hadn't happened. I brought him coffee mid-morning, walking around the house to where he was working. He smiled when he saw me coming, and my stomach did something acrobatic. You don't have to keep bringing me things, he said, but he took the coffee gratefully. I know, I said. I wanted to. We stood there drinking our coffee in silence for a minute. It should have been awkward, but it wasn't. It felt comfortable, natural, like we'd been doing this for years instead of days. Can I ask you something? He said finally. Sure, I said, even though I wasn't sure at all. Why'd you come back here? He asked. To the farm, I mean. You had a good job in Seattle. You could have hired someone to help your parents. I thought about it. Because they needed me, I said. Because my dad almost died, and I realized I'd been avoiding coming home for years, because I was scared if I stayed away any longer, I'd lose them. He nodded slowly. That makes sense. He drank his coffee. I came here for kind of the opposite reason. I needed to get away from my family. They had all these expectations about who I should be, what I should do. I got tired of disappointing them. What were their expectations? I asked. He laughed, but there wasn't much humor in it. The usual. Get married, have kids, take over the family business, be someone I'm not. He looked at me directly. Be straight. The words seemed to echo in the space between us. I felt my heart hammering. Oh, I said. It was barely a whisper. Yeah, he said. So I left. Came here where nobody knows me, where I can just be myself without anyone's commentary. He paused. It's lonely sometimes, but it's better than pretending. I couldn't breathe properly. He'd just told me he was gay. He'd told me deliberately, meaningfully. This was an opening, an invitation. I could walk through it or I could retreat. I could be brave or I could be safe. I don't know who I am, I said. The words came out before I could stop them. I thought I did, but lately I've been feeling things I don't understand, noticing things, wanting things. I stopped, horrified at what I was revealing. I'm sorry. That was too much. No, he said quickly. It's not too much. He set down his coffee cup and took a step closer. Reed, it's okay to not have it all figured out. It's okay to be confused. It's okay to question things. I've been watching you, I said, and my voice shook. Not just casually. Really watching, and I don't know what that means, but I think... I paused, trying to find the courage. I think maybe I do know. I'm just scared to say it. You don't have to say anything, Luca said gently. Not until you're ready. But for what it's worth, I've been watching you too. Why do you think I fixed your fence first? We stood there looking at each other, and something passed between us. Some understanding that didn't need words. Then my mother called my name from the house, and the moment broke. I stepped back, picked up the empty coffee cups, and walked away. But I felt different. Lighter somehow. Like I'd set down something heavy I'd been carrying for years. Over the next week we fell into a pattern. I'd bring him coffee or water or lunch, and we'd talk. Not always about big things. Sometimes just about the weather or the farm or what we'd watched on TV. But underneath the ordinary conversations, there was something else building, some connection that grew stronger each day. I found myself thinking about him constantly. When I was working, when I was helping my father with his exercises, when I was lying in bed at night, I thought about his hands, his voice, the way he looked at me like he could see who I really was underneath all my uncertainty. Thursday of that second week, he asked if I wanted to get dinner sometime. Just dinner, he said. No pressure. We could go into the city, somewhere no one would know us. I said yes before I could overthink it. We went Saturday night. I told my parents I was meeting a friend from college, which felt like a betrayal, but also necessary. I wasn't ready to explain this yet, wasn't ready for their questions when I didn't have answers. Luca picked me up at the end of our driveway, and we drove 40 minutes to a small Italian restaurant in a town where we wouldn't run into anyone we knew. Dinner was easy. We talked about everything and nothing, and I felt more relaxed than I had in months. He told me about growing up in California, about realizing he was gay in high school, about the painful process of coming out to his family. I told him about my life in Seattle, about the girlfriend I'd had who I'd liked but never loved, about the feeling I'd always had that I was performing some role that didn't quite fit. After dinner, we walked around the town, past closed shops and quiet streets. It was fully dark now, and the streetlights cast pools of yellow light on the sidewalk. We weren't touching, but we walked close enough that our arms occasionally brushed, and each touch sent electricity through me. "Can I tell you something?" I said. We'd stopped in front of a bookstore with a darkened window display. "Always," he said. "I think I've been lying to myself for a long time," I said, "about what I want, about who I'm attracted to. I think I've known for years, but I was too scared to admit it. Too scared of what it would mean, how it would change everything." I looked at him, and then you showed up, and suddenly I couldn't ignore it anymore. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "And how do you feel about that? About not being able to ignore it?" "Terrified," I said honestly, "but also relieved, like I've been holding my breath for years, and I'm finally letting it out." He smiled. "That's good. Terrified is good. It means it matters." We started walking again, and this time, tentatively, he reached for my hand. His fingers laced through mine, warm and solid. I looked around nervously, but the street was empty. No one to see us, no one to judge. I squeezed his hand, and he squeezed back. We drove home in comfortable silence. his hand resting on the console between us, occasionally reaching over to touch mine. When we got back to my driveway, he put the truck in park and turned to me. "I had a really good time tonight," he said. "Me too," I said. "I didn't want to leave, didn't want this night to end." "Can we do it again?" "Definitely," he said. He hesitated, then said, "Can I kiss you?" My heart felt like it might explode. "Yes," I whispered. He leaned across the console and his lips met mine, soft and careful. It was gentle, questioning, giving me space to pull away if I wanted. But I didn't want to pull away. I kissed him back, and it felt like everything in my life had been leading to this moment. Every question I'd avoided, every feeling I'd suppressed, every time I'd told myself I was just confused, it all crystallized into this perfect clarity. This was right. This was real. This was who I was. When we finally pulled apart, he rested his forehead against mine. "Okay?" he asked. "More than okay," I said. My voice was shaky. I paused. "That was my first kiss with a guy. I'm honored," he said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. I floated back to my room that night, my lips still tingling, my whole body alive with sensation. I stood at my window looking out at the fence line, at the section he'd fixed first, and I understood now what he'd meant. He'd been reaching out to me even then, making himself visible, creating opportunities for connection. And somehow, miraculously, I'd been brave enough to reach back. The next few weeks were the happiest of my life. We were careful, discreet. He'd finish work and leave, and then later, after my parents were asleep, I'd sneak out and meet him at his place in town. We'd talk for hours, kiss until I was dizzy, explore this new thing between us. He was patient with me, never pushing, always letting me set the pace. And slowly, I became more comfortable with myself, with this identity I was claiming. I told him things I'd never told anyone. About the crush I'd had on my best friend in high school. About the way I'd forced myself to date girls because that's what was expected. About the shame I'd felt when I found myself attracted to men. He listened without judgment, and he shared his own stories, his own struggles. We built something real between us, something solid. One night, lying in his bed with his arm around me, I said, "I think I'm falling in love with you." He kissed the top of my head. "I think I'm already there," he said. Eventually, I knew I'd have to tell my parents. The thought terrified me, but I also knew I couldn't keep living this double life. Luca had finished all the fence work by then, but he'd started helping with other projects around the farm. My father recovered enough to notice things again, commented on how much time the farmhand was spending around our place. My mother smiled knowingly, but didn't say anything. I told them on a Sunday evening in late August. We were sitting on the back porch watching the sun set over the fields. My father was in his wheelchair, my mother in the rocking chair beside him. I stood at the railing, gripping it hard, trying to find the words. "I need to tell you something," I said. My voice shook. "I'm seeing someone. Dating someone. It's serious." "That's wonderful, honey," my mother said. "Who is she?" I took a breath. "Him," I said. "It's a him. It's Luca." The silence stretched out. I couldn't look at them. I stared at the fence line, at the work Luca had done, solid and straight and true. Finally, my father spoke. "The farmhand," he said. His voice was neutral, unreadable. "Yes," I said. I turned to face them. "I'm gay. Or maybe bisexual. I'm still figuring it out. But I know I have feelings for Luca, real feelings, and I can't hide it anymore. I'm sorry if this disappoints you. I'm sorry if it's not what you wanted. But it's who I am." My mother stood up and walked over to me. She pulled me into a hug. "Oh, sweetheart," she said. "You could never disappoint us." Never. I felt tears on my face. "Really?" "Really," she said. She pulled back and looked at me. "I've known something was weighing on you. I'm just glad you felt safe enough to tell us." My father wheeled his chair closer. "He's a good worker," he said gruffly. "Luca does good work? Honest?" I laughed through my tears. "Yeah, he is." "Then that's what matters," my father said. He reached up and patted my hand clumsily with his good hand. "You're happy?" "I'm happy," I said. "Then we're happy," he said simply. That night I drove to Luca's place and told him what had happened. He held me while I cried with relief, with joy, with the overwhelming emotion of being accepted for who I really was. We stayed up late talking about the future, about possibilities. Maybe I'd stay on the farm, help run it. Maybe he'd make this place his permanent home. Maybe we'd build a life here together. It's been 6 months since then. Luca lives in the small cottage at the edge of our property now, the one my grandfather built decades ago. He works for us full-time, helping manage the farm, fixing whatever needs fixing. We're careful in town, still navigating what it means to be a gay couple in a rural area. But here, on our land, we can be ourselves. I still look out my window sometimes, at that eastern fence line, at the section he fixed first. It reminds me of how far I've come, from the person who was too scared to even acknowledge what he was feeling to the person I am now, someone who can love openly and honestly. The fence is still standing, strong and true, just like what we've built together. Some people might say it's just a fence, just posts and rails keeping livestock in or out. But to me, it's a marker, a monument to the moment when someone saw me watching and chose to be visible back. When someone reached out across the space between us and gave me permission to be myself. When someone fixed the fence closest to my window first, and in doing so, helped me fix something broken inside myself. I never thought I'd be the kind of person who falls in love with a farmhand. But here I am, and I've never been happier. Sometimes the life you're meant to live isn't the one you planned. Sometimes it's better